Yeah, so I mean, that's one of those things when you're a subject of a conservatorship, the courts have determined that you don't have any kind of ability to care or make the decisions for yourself. And the whole purpose of a conservatorship is so that someone else can step in and take care of you. And unless you're on board, you're going to have someone else making those decisions for you. And it may be against your will completely. Like in Brittney Spears' case, clearly she does not want it anymore, but that does not matter. If the judge says you need a conservatorship and continue, it's completely in the judge's hands. When you're in a conservatorship, there's an ongoing monitoring that's done by the court. They supervise it, and every so often you have to go in front of the court and they review what's happened both financially and physically to ensure whether or not continuing the conservatorship is in what we call the conservatee. That's the person who has a conservatorship over them, to determine if they'll need that type of care. The conservatee, that person that needs to have the conservatorship over them, they can ultimately petition the court and ask the court to have it removed. Now, that is going to be sometimes a fight, like it's in Brittney Spears' case. And I'm not saying anything, I have no judgment on anybody involved, but the conservator, the one that's actually handling Brittney's affairs, her dad, they're entitled to compensation. And I would say that if you're managing someone's multi-million-dollar estate, you're probably getting paid very well to do that. And therein lies the problem, is that as a conservator, you have a fiduciary relationship with the person that you're taking care of, and you're supposed to do what's in their best interest. But we often see that it's masked, where they have their own self-interest of being paid as the conservator, being masked under the guise of, I'm trying to do what's best for the conservatee. And I think that's what's going on, is that you lose probably a pretty significant stream of income, one that you've had for over a decade, and they're going to put up a fight and say it's all in the name of, in Brittney's case, her best interests. And depending on the situation, most of us aren't sitting on a multi-million-dollar estate, so a situation such as Brittney's is very rare. But the reality of it is you can have a conservatorship placed over you 100% against your will, and you sometimes will not have a say in it. You will have representation, but if the judge decides you need a conservatorship, you're getting one, whether you like it or not. It comes up almost all the time if there's a contest involved. A good portion, a large majority of conservatorships, everyone's consenting to it. They realize the need, and usually it's an elder family member who's lost their capacity or just doesn't want to deal with their own affairs anymore, and they're like, please, someone take it over for me and handle my affairs. And in that situation, it's almost a rubber stamp at the court. But if you get into a situation where someone, either the conservatee who's getting the conservatorship placed over them, or a family member is contesting it, 9 times out of 10, one of the arguments involved is going to involve the money. And it could be, a small estate, under $100,000 estate, or it could be $1 million estate or more. The fight's still the same. Unfortunately, money often has a hand in these type of contests. Right, and there's obviously Netflix movie was just released, and it's fictional in nature, of course, but it highlights the real possibility of something like that happening. Now, of course, there's oversight, and likely what happened in that movie would have been caught by the court. But if you have someone enterprising enough, know the laws well enough, and there is some opportunity for some conservators to take advantage of the situation. And, as a society, we want the ability to have a conservatorship being placed over a family member or ourselves in times when we need to make sure that their care is being taken care of and someone's there to handle their affairs. We want that as a society. And we also want that to be done in their own best interests. But human nature, as we all know, sometimes forces people to do things that they probably necessarily wouldn't do, but they're doing it because money is involved. And it's, why money gets that negative connotation of being the root of all evil. Those have been scams that have gone on, and quite frankly, those types of scams have now transitioned to internet and phone. People, unfortunately, take advantage of those that are not necessarily weak, but just unaware. And so it could be the elderly, it could be you or I. If someone presents us with something that seems real and we have a need that person's offering to help with, we can find ourselves in a situation, and sometimes people in our age bracket will find ourselves in those type of situations if the need is big enough. And those type of, the scenario you're talking about is a situation where you have someone that's, probably a little extra lonely than the average person, and here you have this, knight in shining armor rolling in on the horse there to help and telling you everything you want to hear and fulfilling that need in a way that you never thought would be possible again. And they find that weakness and exploit it, and unfortunately it happens quite often.